All right, we are at the very last paragraph of 6A4 in Megillah, page 6, the very last couple of lines on the first side of the page. Okay, and we have, as we're going through a listing of different teachings by Rabbi Yitzchak, and the idea being, let's all keep this all in one place. But sometimes they're going to be related to each other, and sometimes not. So it's 6A4, the last two lines on the left-hand side. This is a very short page, and then we're going to go straight into 6B1. Who wants to please volunteer to read for us? Beryl, yay. Go ahead. Another teaching.
Another teaching from Rabbi Yitzchak on a similar theme. And Rabbi Yitzchak also said, what is the meaning of that which is written? Grant not Hashem the desires of the wicked one. Do not remove his nose ring, that they should be exalted. Selah. Jacob said before the Holy One, blessed is he, master of the universe. Do not grant Esav the wicked the desire of his heart. Do not remove his nose ring. This refers to
Jeremiah,
a royal province of Edom, who, if they would but go forth, would destroy the entire world.
Okay, so we'll get to this next paragraph, which is an elaboration on that. So we're in the story, the biblical figures of Jacob and Esav. Esav is Edom. For the rabbis, this is Rome, and eventually Christendom. And it's a major world force, which particularly for the Jews is an oppressive entity. So the drasha, right, the little homily that is being offered here by Rabbi Yitzchak is taking a verse that comes from Psalms, Psalms, and it says, God, al titain ma'avayei rasha. Do not let those desires of the wicked person come true. Zmamo al tafek, yarumu sela, right? And the simpler understanding, not the one that's being read here, the simpler is, zmamo means his plans, his plotting, his strategies. Don't let them rise up and succeed. And I pray this again and again and again. The word Selah is hard to translate. Most people just write out the word Selah again. They don't give an English translation. But traditionally, Selah is meant to be a kind of an emphatic. We say sometimes Amen Selah, right? Really, really, really Amen. Or the emphasis is the way emphasis often works, by repetition. So sometimes we have Ashrei Yoshmei Veitecha, Od Yahalalucha Selah, right? Happy are those that dwell in your house; they will ever praise you. Selah. So the word Selah there is understood as again and again and again. So here we have this continual prayer, and it's put here in the mouth of Jacob, that please, God, don't let Esav's plans come true. But here, instead of reading that Zamamo as thinking through plotting and trying to achieve something, instead we have him reading it as a Zamom, which is a nose ring. And the nose ring is the ring that you put into the nose, let's say, of an ox, and that lets you control the ox, right? That keeps the ox a little bit in your in your control, because by pulling on the nose ring, the ox will follow you, even though the ox is a zillion times stronger than you are. But the nose ring is in a sensitive place, and if you pull on the nose ring, it doesn't like it's uncomfortable. It might even be in pain, and in order not to be in pain, it'll follow you, and therefore you can control it a little bit. So so this way, Rabbi Yitzchak is reading this creatively as saying, don't take away Edom's nose ring, the nose ring which keeps him in check, which keeps him under control. So what is this nose ring? We're now on 6b1, Germania. So if you look in the notes, and this is basically what everybody understands, Germania is a corruption of Germania. And Germania is Germany. So what the rabbis are talking about is how the Roman Empire was struggling by the tribes up north that were giving them a lot of trouble, fighting against them. Eventually those tribes destroyed the Roman Empire. But for a while, it was always something that was a deflection, something that the Roman Empire had to constantly send extra troops up there to fight the Germanic tribes. So this is a reference to that situation by the rabbis with regard to the Roman Empire itself as being, they could be even worse than they are, but thankfully there's some distractions that are being created by other people, by other forces, and therefore God keep on making it possible for us to take a little breather by having the Edom, by having the Roman Empire distracted by these other competing tribes. So now let's read the next paragraph.
More about Germania. And Rabbi Hama bar Hanina said, there are 300 crowned princes in Germania of Edom, and there are 365 chieftains in Rome. And every day, one group goes forth to encounter the other group, and one of them is killed. And they would then have the trouble of appointing a new ruler in his stead. Okay.
So in terms of the numbers, I have no idea what those numbers. 365, of course, is 365 days of the year. So it's a kind of a classic number. And there are 300 crown princes of Germania. I don't know why it's 300, but there's a lot. So there, and the crown princes means there's a lot of militias and chieftains and little duchies and groups that are fighting with the leaders of Rome. Rome has a little bit of a numerical advantage, but nevertheless, they're constantly at each other's throats, and this requires constant readjustment, and that's what takes up time for both the Romans and the Germanic tribes. That they're always having a fight, and then they have to regroup, and they have to find new leadership, and so on. So thank God that they're always busy with all of that stuff. And that gives us a little bit of relief. Okay, so the world, politics and military situation, as it's viewed by one tiny little, detail, which is the Jewish people itself. Okay.
Another teaching from Rabbi Yitzhak, and Rabbi Yitzhak also said, if someone tells you, I labored in the study of Torah but did not succeed, do not believe him. If he tells you, I have not labored in the study of Torah, yet I have succeeded, do not believe him. If, however, he tells you, I have labored in the study of Torah and I have succeeded, you may believe him.
Okay, so we should note that in the terms of the font that we have, we've got the bold and we've got the non-bold, right? So the bold is the literal or direct translation of the text, and then the words that are not in bold the editorial comment. So the real text is, Im yomar lecha adam, if a person says to you, Yagati v'lo matzati, I worked hard and I did not find, al tamin, don't believe. It doesn't say what he worked at, right? It's only in the next paragraph when we have a qualification that we find out that this is referring possibly to Torah study. But the first, reading of it is that it applies to anything, right? It applies to anything, that there's no free lunch. You have to work on things in order to succeed. In order to accomplish something, you have to work on it. And then when we say, I really worked on it, but it still didn't happen. It still didn't work. That's where Rabbi Yitzchak says, don't believe it. Right? Maybe you needed to work at it harder. Maybe you needed to work at it differently. Maybe you didn't find what you thought you wanted to find, but there's something that you found. You're just not paying attention to what you actually did find. So what this is saying is that it has he's totally convinced in the value of hard work. Hard work always pays off, right? And not doing hard work doesn't pay off. That's basically what he's saying. So if a person says to you, I really, really labored at something, but lo matzati, I did not find success, I did not find what I was looking for, don't believe them, right? If they say, I did not work very hard, but I got it anyway, it just dropped into my lap, don't believe them either. But if they say, I really worked hard and therefore I accomplished something, I found, then you can believe it. Anybody want to give additional commentary here? Okay. Now we get to what the editor already predicted, where the Talmud says, what are we talking about? A qualification.
A qualification. This is true of Torah study, but with regard to business, one's success is dependent on assistance from heaven. A further qualification, and even with Torah study, this was not said except in regard to the understanding of Torah, but in regard to retaining one's learning, one's success is dependent upon assistance from heaven.
Okay. So the first qualification is, well, it depends what field we're talking about. It depends what kind of endeavor we're engaged in. Depends what you're putting your efforts into. When it comes to Torah study, you will always succeed if you work hard. And if you don't work hard, then don't expect to succeed. Right? That's Torah study. However, wait one second. However, when it comes to business, you may actually succeed even without working that hard. Or conversely, you may work like a dog, and then unfortunately, you won't succeed because of something that happens. This is all in the hands of heaven. Yeah, Josie, what did you want to say?
I would think it'd be the other way around.
Why?
That if you are really applying yourself to Torah study with the help of God, you will succeed. And business, I don't know why God is interested in business. I thought it would be the other way around.
There's no telling what God will be interested in. What can I tell you? But some people think that God is really interested in the Mets. So
in the Mets?
Yeah, the Mets or whatever team they're rooting for. They're really convinced that God is absolutely interested in that.
Okay.
So I don't know. No, so let's understand this a little bit better. What in a sense what they're saying is a little bit of what you're saying. What God's investment in the Torah is such that God is obligated basically to let you succeed if you work hard, because God gave you the Torah. God didn't give you the Torah so that you shouldn't succeed in learning it.
Okay.
Right? God didn't give you the Torah so that you should stumble on it. Unfortunately, this is actually one of the classic early Christian Pauline critiques of the Torah. It's really a trap. It's really impossible to succeed at the Torah. This is the law is so detailed, so hard to fulfill that it really is. It's not a blessing; it's a curse. And the Jewish community that remained faithful to the Torah said the exact opposite. No, we're totally convinced that the Torah is both in learning and in practice doable, achievable. You can succeed in Torah. You have to work like the devil in order to actually get there sometimes, but you can. So with business, basically what they're saying is it's up for grabs. It really is more arbitrary when they use the word here. Siyata, right? What is it? Right? Umatan siyata hu min shmaya. So that's a pious way of saying it's a banner of luck. Now, whether you're going to succeed in business or not, if you're fortunate, literally the word fortunate, right? If you're fortunate, you will. And if you're not fortunate, you won't. And it's not going to be key to your efforts. It doesn't relate directly to your efforts. So if a person says, you know what, I invested my heart and soul into this business and it never got off the ground, you can believe him. If a person says, I invested my heart and soul into trying to understand the Torah and I couldn't, don't believe him. Beryl.
I think a very important part of conducting business is weights and measures. And that's, I think, very much dealt with in the Torah.
What do you mean? What do you mean by
the concept of having fair weights and measures is very much outlined in the Torah, and I think it is essential to conducting business. So that, for me, is a point of relationship.
So that's obviously a very, very important point. The Torah tells us how to do business in an honest way. The Torah wants us to do business in an honest way. The Torah is in that sense, it's pro honest business, right? You should flourish. Good, gesundheit hate. Do it in an honest way, like you say. The problem is that sometimes people are honest and they nevertheless they don't flourish. They don't and then following up on what we were talking about in Pirkei Avot, sometimes it's the dishonest competition that drives you out of business. And sometimes there are business people that have been dishonest who are successful. We have a president like that. So what do you do with that? So we talked about that in Pirkei Avot. So here, what they're saying is, you can try as hard as you want in business. There's going to be an element of arbitrariness. There's going to be an element of that you cannot understand with regard to that. I remember when I was in yeshiva back in the good old days. There was a person I was friends with who was not the most brilliant student in the yeshiva. But I was in awe of this guy because he worked his butt off. A lot of stuff that not to toot my horn, that came easy to me was so hard for him. And he never, ever, ever gave up. He never, ever, ever gave up. He became a rabbi, he became an educator. He just had this unflagging commitment to work as hard as he could until he could get to his understanding of the Torah. And he never got tired. He never got tired. He never gave up hope. He never gave up in terms of his efforts. The guy was amazing. So that's the faith that he had, that if it's Torah, it's there for me to understand.
Well, Rabbi.
Yes.
But of course, there's always the element of luck or things beyond which you have no control. I think of people who were in businesses that suddenly boom because the computer was invented.
Mm-hmm.
That was outside their control.
Right, and that's what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying.
That's what it's talking about. I think.
That's what he's saying. He's saying, the effort is great, wonderful, try, but there's no guarantees. But he is claiming here again, which is something that we would not necessarily admit to ourselves. There is a guarantee for Torah. If you work on Torah, you'll get there. Again, what I want to sort of like soften this with is what you're going to understand may not necessarily be identical with what some other genius understands, but you'll understand what you need to understand.
Or Rabbi, would
yes.
you say another way of putting it is that if you're going to study something, Torah, or you can't lose anything.
Yeah, and I just want us to appreciate that that's not to be taken for granted, because on a personal level, people all throughout history, but certainly in modern times, people have come away sometimes with a very bitter or defeated sense of what was the point here? I spent 20 years of my life in yeshiva, and it was just a waste of my life. There are a lot of people today, because in the modern world, the value of the Torah is, of course, nugatory. So it assumes a community where this is valued in a serious way. But you can you can unfortunately feel very defeated. I mean, I know of a person, and this is of course part of the emotional ego investments that people have. What are you studying for? What are you trying to find? Right? When the phrase here is, in the literal phrases, Yagati umatzati. I worked hard and I found, which means I got it. What are you looking to find? Are you looking to find understanding, or are you looking to find recognition? Are you looking to find a position? Right? My whole life I studied, I never got tenure. So, and I don't want to put that down. That could be a terribly defeating and demoralizing feeling. So part of what he's saying is to reframe how you look at it. If you're studying Torah, that's, as always, it's the studying of the Torah for its own sake that you're doing it. It's not for the material success. It's not for the social standing. It's not for any of those kinds of accomplishments. Yeah, Josie.
I took a number of Hebrew classes with Yechiel. And I was not a very good language student years ago, and I'm even worse now because I just can't retain things. And I came away thinking I haven't learned anything. And yet when I look in the prayer book and I listen, I can sound out some of those words, not all of them, but some in the prayers. So I did learn something. Right. I just didn't learn as much as I thought I was going to learn.
Right. And that brings us
something.
Right. Good. And that brings us to the second of the qualifications. There's a difference between the in the moment study and how much you can accomplish, where you get to when you're delving into trying to understand something in the Torah. And then there's the question of retention, what you're bringing up. And the Gemara makes this editorial comment that if you work hard, you're going to benefit from it. You're going to find something. If you work hard, you're going to find something. Will you remember it, a year later or 2 weeks later? Good question. I don't know. I remember, again, personally, back when I was studying Torah, in the ivory tower of the yeshiva, there was one day that I was studying, and I understood something that was a problem, and it hit me. I understood it. I understood the solution to the problem. I was absolutely elated. I remember the moment. I remember the situation. It was such a moment of ecstasy to crack that and to have an insight, to really see this clearly. I remember that moment. I do not remember the insight. I have no I mean, I know vaguely what was the field, what was the area. You know, I remember what the topic was, but I do not remember what the problem was. I do not remember what the insight was that I had. And afterwards, I was so happy, and I shared it with my teacher, and my teacher went, "Wow, that's great," and he never thought of it, and blah blah blah. I remember all of that, all of the icing to the cake. I can't remember the cake. I have it written down, so I can go and look it up. But the retention is not there. Unfortunately, the retention is really not there. So retention is here. The retention, well, you know, I'll have to go back and study that again, and rediscover it, and maybe you know, I'll be happy again when I rediscover it. There's an ongoing in that world, you know, an ongoing observation that how did these great rabbis remember all of this stuff? How do they have such an amazing memory? So obviously, some of them were gifted with tremendously amazing memories. But I remember one rabbi who misspoke. He was bemoaning the fact that he couldn't remember as well as he used to remember. He says, in my youth, I had a pornographic memory. And so instead of saying photographic. So, but is it because some people just always have these amazing memories? The answer is, they said about Reb Moshe. He said, no, it's not that he has such a great memory. He's just constantly reviewing his studies. He's constantly studying it again and again and again and again and again. So it's not like, oh yeah, I read that book 20 years ago. No, he's reading the tractate, you know, again and again and again and again and again. So you don't rely just on your memory. There's a story about Rabbi Saul Lieberman, who was a professor at JTS, at the seminary. And one time a visiting scholar came, and, you know, with visiting scholars, everybody likes to, you know, have banter and show off a little bit and engage in a little Torah, you know, exchanges. So this scholar was talking to Shaul Lieberman and said, you know, something about something, and he says, you know where this is, and he didn't remember where it was, or he didn't know where it was. So the sage says, it's right in this obscure comment in someplace, and he showed him where it was. So, in a certain tractate. So afterwards, so it was thank you, it was wonderful, terrific, great being together with you. As soon as the scholar left, Rabbi Lieberman took out that volume of the Talmud and started from the first page and started studying that volume of the Talmud from the first page till the end. So they said, why? What are you doing? He says, because if I forgot that one little thing that this sage pointed out to me, who knows what else I forgot? So I have to now review everything. So he just took it and he looked it over from the beginning. Yeah. So, yeah.
Just as an aside, there's a lovely little story about Einstein, who said,
yeah.
I don't know.
I forget. Wait, I forget. Who was
I know. His first name starts with an A.
Yeah.
Who said, I don't know everything, but I know how to find it.
That's one of the great things to be taught, right? To give you the tools, you know, give you the fishing skills so that you can fish when you need it. Right. Absolutely. Good. Another teaching by Rabbi Yitzchak. Beryl.
Another teaching from Rabbi Yitzchak, and Rabbi Yitzchak also said, if you see a wicked person who is enjoying good fortune, do not contend with him, as it is said, do not contend with wicked men. And Not only that, but his endeavors will be successful. As it is said, his ways are always successful. And not only that, but he will emerge victorious in court. As it is said, your judgments are far removed from him. And not only that, but he will even witness the downfall of his enemies. As it is said, all his foes, he blows at them.
Okay. So this is a pretty bitter, even cynical kind of statement. And this is a little bit of the flip side of the statement we just had. The statement we just had is this, wonderful song of faith in studying Torah and so on, but it acknowledges that there's also kinds of arbitrary stuff in the world. And now he brings it to home with regard to bad people succeeding in this world. And he alerts us and warns us, and he says, if somebody who's really no good is on a roll, then just get out of the way. Get out of the way. Don't stop. Don't try to stop that person. Don't try to fight that person. Now, this is a pretty, we'll see that the Gemara has to continue to talk about this. But he then goes through this whole thing of unpacking a verse to say that sometimes there are wicked people that succeed in everything that they're trying to do. And not only that, not only are their ways always successful, but they will emerge victorious in court when they're challenged, when people are going to try to stop them by suing them or by trying to get them to be punished for their wrongdoings. Guess what? The legal system will be absolutely useless against them. They'll know how to use the legal system for their own gains, whether it means in terms of loopholes or it means in terms of paying off the judges. The legal system will be ineffectual. They'll still be able to succeed. And not only that, but he will even witness the downfall of his enemies, right? The people who are trying to stop him. His enemies here means the good guys. The people who are trying to stop this evil SOB from succeeding, he will see them all fail. He will see them all, suffer a downfall. So this is quite a harsh and terrible statement that's saying, in such a case, you have no hope. Get out of the way. Just save yourself. Right? We had in a Pirkei Avot, we talked about not collaborating or not being close to the wicked. And this is even, and this is now, pushing it and saying, don't even fight them. Don't try. Don't even think about it. Because when they are, as the phrase here is, when they are enjoying good fortune, hasha'a mesacheket lo, when the time is smiling on him, when they're enjoying a run of luck, then don't interpose yourself in front of him. He'll just roll you over you. Some say the point is, if he's got enough money, he will make everything work in his favor. Now, as I said, he can pay off everybody. He can reach settlements, confidential settlements, to make him be able to just keep on doing what he's doing. You can't even talk about it. He's got everything on his side. So this is, frankly, a very troubling, piece of advice. There's a like I say, a cynical or a grim, resignation that you just can't fight big evil guys when they're on top. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just cower in your corner and try to stay away from it. Anybody want to weigh in on this a little bit before we get into how the Gemara tries to struggle with it?
Well, I hope we're gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope we're going to see in another paragraph that he will get his just desserts at some point, but it won't be by you. It will be by God or the justice system. But right. I haven't read ahead, so I don't know.
Right, but you were in our discussion in the bite-sized wisdom in the Pirkei Avot. Yeah. So this is the early saying that we had in Pirkei Avot, Al titya'ish min ha'puranot. If you can't do anything about it, so don't give up. There will be justice in the end.
Yeah,
right. There will be justice in the end. But that's not the main thrust of what he's talking about here. What he's talking about here is giving a lot of space to evil to run its course successfully in this world. When it's on top, when it's on top, don't mess with it. You have to wait until you see the wheel turn a little bit. But the implication is when the time is not smiling on him, when his fortunes are beginning to turn, then you can try to start fighting. But when he's at the peak of his success, forget about it. I'm thinking about, let's say, McCarthy. All right, Senator McCarthy. When he was at the top of his game, nobody had a chance against him, right? But this begs the question. So when are you supposed to fight, right? What is your obligation to step up against evil? What Rabbi Yitzchak here is being very practical about and saying, don't be such a hero. And of course, like I say, that's a very troubling statement. Yes, Sylvia and then Stuart.
Yeah, no, I read it even darker. It's sort of an acknowledgement that there are indeed in this world people who are evil. And that's just the way it is. I mean, you take the demagogues of history and a truly evil person is, you can't change them. That's who that person is.
Right. So, but it's not about changing them. What about fighting against them?
Or confronting them, because their evilness will overrule everything.
So that's the not obvious point. You know what? A more expected point would be when you see somebody evil, get as many people as you can on your side and go out there and fight the evil. Right? That would be the straightforward moral command. And what he's saying is, there are times when evil is going to succeed, and you have to read those times. You have to, know which way the wind is blowing, so to speak. And like I say, that's basically a very cynical kind of approach. Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be at odds with what we like to think of as sort of our liberal Jewish ethics, that when we see injustice, we need to do something about it. There's an but putting that aside, there's just an ambiguity here. Are they talking about when the wicked person is doing something at your expense, or is the wicked person doing something at the expense of a third party? So if you see injustice being done to somebody, to your neighbor, it might be harder. You might be more inclined to say, okay, well, I'm going to be quiet because I don't want to expose myself. If the injustice is at your own expense, then it's really saying to you that you should just be passive and not even protect yourself. So it says, he will witness, do not contend with wicked men. His endeavors will be successful. I don't know if he is successful against you, or is it successful against others?
Well, the next one thing is successful. His endeavors will be successful. Next thing is anybody who stands up against him, he will defeat. He'll defeat in court. and he'll defeat them in general. So it's pretty grim. But your distinction about who is he doing the bad to is an important point. We're going to see that the Gemara, picks that up and starts discussing that soon.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And again, there's plenty of places in the Talmud that say we are morally obligated to stand up against evil. That if we don't say something when something bad is being done, then we are culpable, for letting it be. So this statement by Rabbi Yitzchak is not, just a simple statement. But the qualifier is, and the scary part of what he's saying is, it depends on when, right? He says you have to be canny about it. You have to judge, like I say, which way the winds are blowing. If this evil person is on a roll, you have to recognize that.
Right. Because your actions might be futile, right? If you're just
right, you'll just get squashed by him.
Right.
So is that the reconciliation of these opposite seeming statements, that you just have to wait for the proper moment?
So that's what I don't know if that's a reconciliation. He's saying a warning. The problem is, while you're waiting, Stuart's point is, what kind of evil are we talking about? Are we talking about something trivial? No, we're not. We're talking about some serious evil here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it at all. So if we're talking about serious evil, how long are you supposed to wait? 5 years? 10 years? How many people are supposed to suffer? Who is the one who's being treated evilly by this person? So it's a scary proposition. Look at how much discussion there is. Why didn't FDR let them bomb the railway lines? So the answer is, well, he didn't think that we could afford to do it, or this and that and the other thing, whatever, when you want to try to defend it. But meanwhile, the suffering happens, right? So this is a pretty scary statement. Okay, the Gemara is not going to let it alone. The Gemara asks.
Is this indeed so, that one should not antagonize a wicked person? But Rav Yochanan said in the name of Rav Shimon ben Yochai, is it permissible to contend?
It is permissible.
It is permissible to contend with the wicked in this world. As it is said, those who forsake Torah praise the wicked, and those who adhere to Torah contend with them. And likewise, it was taught in a Baraita, Rav Dostai bar Matun.
Good.
It is permissible to contend with the wicked in this world. And if someone should whisper to you, saying, but Scripture states, do not contend with the wicked. Be not zealous against evildoers. No.
That's the verse that Rabbi Yitzchak used.
Where am I?
Know that
only one whose conscience smites him explains the verse in that manner. Rather, this is the correct interpretation. Do not compete with the wicked. That is, do not attempt to be like the wicked. Be not envious of evildoers. That is, do not desire to be like evildoers. And similarly, Scripture states, let your heart envy sinners.
Okay. So we have two readings now of the verse. The verse that Rabbi Yitzchak used to say, back off. When the evil are succeeding, just mind your own business. Don't pick a fight with them. Now we have a counter statement that says that you can, and we'll have to look at that in a minute. But then they say, well, what about Rabbi Yitzchak's verse? Rabbi Yitzchak's verse says, don't do it. And they say this is somebody who's looking for an excuse not to do it. To read the verse in that way is when your conscience is bothering you and you're going, I really know that I should oppose this person or fight against this person, but I'm afraid and I don't have confidence. So how can I make an excuse so that I will not feel bad for not fighting against them? Oh, I can read this verse the way Rabbi Yitzchak read it. So what they're saying is Rabbi Yitzchak's teaching aids and abets apathy and non, not fighting against evil, and that's bad. So they disagree with that reading, and they say the opposite. Don't be like the evil one. Don't try to emulate them in any way. That's the way you're supposed to read those very same words. Okay, so does that translate then into an obligation to fight evil? Let's look at the language that we have in both of these sages. Rabbi Yochanan said it in the name of Shimon Bar Yochai, and we also have it in the name of Rabbi Dostai Bar Maton. Both of them used the very strange, at least initially, the word mutar. It is permissible, right? They don't say chayav adam. A person is obligated to fight against the wicked. That's not what it says. What they're saying is it's absolutely permissible to fight against them. So now, to a certain extent, we could read this as, in other words, when somebody tells you to turn the other cheek, no, you're not obligated to turn the other cheek. You can fight. You want to fight back, fight back. And of course, this comes back to the question of whose axe is being gored, right? Who's being done evil? Is it you? Is it evil that you're seeing being done to others? What sense do we make of this idea that it's permissible to fight the evil?
You have to do so in a way that is honorable. That we don't fight fire with fire if fire is evil. That you have to play by the rules. That you can't use someone else's evil as an excuse to engage in evil yourself.
Right. So that's even taking that same reading later on and applying it to the fight. Don't be like the evil person when you fight the evil person.
Yeah.
Right. Do it with permissible ways, in an honorable way. Do it in a moral way, and in the right way. That would be one way to understand. I think another way is to simply acknowledge the possibility of thinking cynically and try to then deflect that. The idea that you can't fight City Hall, or you can't fight the powers that be, or you can't, this is the way the world is. You're just asking for trouble if you're going to fight against the big bad forces, however you identify those forces. There is a tendency among many people not just simply to say they recognize that it is evil. They recognize this group or this institution or this idea that's being promulgated by somebody. They recognize it as evil, but there's a cynicism is unfortunately a very, very prevalent philosophy because of the empirical evidence that says that evil really, does get away with murder. So, you're just asking for trouble. Don't do it. So it's foolhardy, or it's worse. It's bad to fight evil. There's I've mentioned it, because it really made a tremendous impact on me. Years ago, I saw a Russian movie in Israel. I don't know if it came here. And it was about a guy who was totally honest and who was trying to fight the corruption in his town in the buildings department. And he was trying to save a whole bunch of tenants that were living in a building that was built not up to code. And he discovered it. he saw that, you know, all the payoffs and all of the corruption within the system had allowed the building to be built in a faulty way, and it was at the brink of collapse. And he wanted to be the whistleblower. And I'm making the story much simpler. I mean, this is part of his whole ongoing. His father was honest and got nowhere, and then he wanted to be honest. And the argument within the family was, how dare you try to fight the evil? All you're going to do is cause more trouble for all of us. And they felt that it was absolutely wrong to fight the evil, that he had no right to try to fight the evil, because it was guaranteed that not only would he go down, but he would also cause the terrible problems and suffering for the rest of the family, not just in terms of their feelings for him, but economically and socially. They would lose everything that they had, which was not much, but it was something. So the argument in an environment where evil is rampant and evil is successful, the argument is a very strong one to say, not only is it prudent not to fight evil, but it is actually imperative not to fight evil, so that you don't cause more trouble for the people that are dear to you. And therefore, this statement says, no,
very hard.
Absolutely, it is absolutely permissible. Before we get to what obligations you may or may not have, it is absolutely permissible to fight evil. Now, who's going to fight the evil? So this conscience part that's mentioned in this paragraph is also interesting. There are people that are going to make excuses for not fighting evil. What does it mean for a person whose conscience won't let him alone, right? Then he needs the permission. Yeah, Josie. And then
that reminds me of that Ibsen play, An Enemy of the People, where a doctor in a town that's famous for its healing spas discovers that the water's polluted, and he wants to bring this to the public, and that will impact on tourism, and people will lose money, and all the town big shots are against him. And he failed. I think he fails in the end. I'm trying to remember the end of the play, but it's that same, you know, one man standing up against the power structure to protect the health, in this case, of other people.
Right.
Right. It's a very powerful play.
And in the movie, he fails also. He ends up paying, you know, with his life, and his whole family is destroyed. A very dark movie, very powerful. What it does bring up, just at this moment, before Stuart gets a chance to chime in, I want to say what it brings up to me is the question of the individual fighting evil versus a collective fighting evil. Right? When you are the lone voice, then it's totally frightening to contemplate the idea of fighting evil on your own. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying but it's really, really, really hard. What we see today is an uprising of many, many people, each one by themselves is just as subject to be mown down and destroyed as the people that they're protesting who did lose their lives. But the numbers start growing, and then you can put one person in jail, you can put 20 people in jail, you can hurt, you know, a whole bunch of the people at the demonstration, but there's more, and then there's more, and then there's more. So part of the painfulness of this discussion is the person that's mulling this over. Do I fight evil or not? How much is that person alone? And how much does that person have connections with others? Stuart, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a really rich moral question here, and there are a lot of different approaches to it. But to give just a recent, very topical example that caused some discussion in my house, there was some kind of internet troll who started some kind of online rumor about. Oh no, I know what it was. Well, there were two recent incidents. One is, I think somebody used some kind of technology, it's TikTok or something like that, to say that there was going to be a big rally of, I guess the people were going to the Trump rally in South Dakota, and that the tickets were going fast. And
yeah.
And then there was another one where there was a troll who said that there was going to be an event in Gettysburg, and there were going to be the anarchists, the Antifa were going to be there, and so all of the right-wing racists showed up, and there wasn't anybody there because it was all a joke. And some people of a more liberal persuasion said, well, that's all good. We're just, fighting fire with fire. If they're going to do dishonest things on the internet, then we should do the same, because that's how we have to fight these people. And my feeling was, those are two different kinds of cases, because in one case, the people who were going to Gettysburg were arriving all armed to the teeth and posing dangers to the people in the town. In the other case, they were trying to create this false impression that the Trump rally in South Dakota at the Mount Rushmore was going to be much bigger success than it was. No, maybe it wasn't. It was in Oklahoma, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But my feeling, so there's a utilitarian question. Are you going to cause more trouble, with the fact that all these right-wing people are going to Gettysburg? Maybe that's going to create a danger to the people in the town, or it's going to harm tourism in the town. But I think there's also a matter of principle, which is, look, that they may play by those rules. They may do dishonest things. We don't do that, because that's dishonest, and we're going to win, by doing things the right way. And if you're trolling on the internet and creating a false narrative on the internet, that's even if you're doing it in the with an aim to promoting baby values that we agree with, you're still compromising yourself. So I don't know how people in the class feel about that. And again, maybe they're distinguishable. So everyone thought it was really funny that the Trump campaign was feeling that there were going to be hundreds of thousands of people showing up for their rally, and it was all kind of an illusion created by young people on the internet. And I kind of thought, like, no, we shouldn't be doing that. So that's just my personal view. But I think maybe I agree with Rabbi Yochanan here. So,
Beryl, you want to say something? No, you're just ready to read. Anybody else want to say something? Yeah, the problem of how you fight evil is like you say, a perpetual, eternal problem, and how much do you honor the rules of war, or the Geneva Accords, or whatever other kinds of things that there are that are a basis of some kind of moral standing, and when do you violate them? Very painful, very hard conversation. But nevertheless, I think here we're even talking about even doing it morally. Should you refrain? Is it something that for the sake of your own well-being, for the sake of your life, for the sake of the life of your loved ones, for the sake of a group that you are identified with, do you refrain? Do you wait and not do anything? Or is the martyrdom of a person something that is necessary, so to speak, tragically to motivate people, to give people a rallying point, to show people not to be cowards? These are very, very, again, and I want to say that it's not for anybody else in the end to decide that somebody should do it. That's why I think that there's a certain wisdom to saying the door is open, mutar. But whether you're the one who's going to do it or not, that you have to decide. We're not going to tell you, yeah, you go fight evil. We'll watch, and we're definitely rooting for you. it's up to you. Very, very tricky. I mean, we'll see that the Gemara has more things to say about this, because it doesn't sit well. This is a very uncomfortable situation, and a very uncomfortable problem to deal with, because it's all too real. It's very much all too real. Okay, let's continue. This Braita.
This Braita, which rules that it is permissible to contend with the wicked, contradicts Rabbi Yitzhak, who said that one should refrain from doing so.
Okay, so now we could simply say, yeah, so we've got an argument. We've got some people see it one way and some people see it the other way. But the Gemara, if it can, will try to use conflict of opinion to illuminate more nuances and to figure out, well, in what sense would this opinion have something to hold on to? In what sense would that contradictory opinion have something, what could we see from the other opinion that would then, bring up more things for us to recognize and think about? So here we go. The Gemara resolves the contradiction.
This presents no difficulty because the statement of Rabbi Yitzhak, which prescribes antagonizing the wicked, speaks in reference to one's personal affairs, whereas the Baraita, which permits one to contend with the wicked, speaks in reference to heavenly affairs, that is, to defend Torah with mitzvot.
And mitzvot.
And
right. Okay, so here we come to a distinction that's along the lines of what Stuart was asking about before. Right? Who's being hurt? What kind of evil are we talking about? So now the Gemara offers the following example. If the evil is being executed against you personally, don't fight against it. But if the evil is bigger than you, here the phrase, and again, their editorial comment is not necessarily the only way to read it. Heavenly affairs, meaning values. We're talking about this person is violating major values of decency, of holiness, of propriety, of all kinds of things that affect everybody. Then it's different. So when it's you and only you that is being made to suffer, Rabbi Yitzchak's advice is wait it out. Don't go into the fray, because you know what? This person is stronger than you. This person is out to get you, and you're going to play right into their hands if you go and start fighting with them at this moment. Because right now, all of their ducks are in a row, and they've got everything in their favor. If you try to sue them, they've got the court in their back pocket. If you try to fight them with publicity, they'll sue you for slander, and they'll whatever. If you try to do whatever, if you try to cause them trouble, they're not good people. They will not respect you. They will hurt you some more. So that's if they are in a position of power at this moment, then you can't fight them. That's when it's only you. However, if it's more than you, or if it's others, if it's a question of a particular cause of injustice, then no. Then you can't simply say, okay, it's nobody's business and let's let it run the course. Then you have to be concerned and you have to start making the calculations. I can fight this person. How do I fight this person? So that's the first way that the Gemara offers a distinction. Okay. Was this a distinction that you were looking for before, Stuart? Okay, good. I mean, you could have read it, you could have made it the other way. When it's if somebody else's problem, none of your business. When somebody's hurting you, don't be a wimp. Go out and fight. Go down fighting. That kind of macho idea is not the idea that's being advocated here. On the contrary, it's the opposite.
My intuition was that you have to defend yourself first.
So that's the opposite of here.
Right. No, I understand. I mean, I agree with the distinction, but I'm not sure that I come out the same way as Rabbi Yitzchak does. But
right. Anyway. So again, what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying is there's morality and then there's practicality. He's agreeing what they're doing is wrong, but you're just going to get hit in the teeth even worse if you try to fight it at this moment. Right? That's what he's saying. Okay, a different answer.
An alternative answer, and if you prefer, say that both this, the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak, and this, the Baraita, speak in reference to one's personal affairs, and yet no difficulty is posed by the disparity of their rulings, because this, the Baraita, which permits one to contend with the wicked, speaks in reference to one who is utterly righteous, whereas this, the statement of Rav Yitzchak, which prescribes antagonizing the wicked, speaks in reference to one who is not utterly righteous. That is, all agree that only a truly righteous person is allowed to contend with the wicked.
Okay, so what do we make of this? It's this person is making your life miserable. This person is cheating you or hurting you in serious ways. Do you go out and confront them and fight them? So Rabbi Yitzchak says, watch it. Right? Watch out. If there's anything that you've done that can be used against you, it's going to come out. If you are not perfectly righteous, then you will be subject to attack and to defeat because of those failings that you have done. You're a good man. You're a good woman. You're basically okay, but you're not perfect. Guess what? You're going to pay the price. Now, we could read this as a heavenly calculation. God will not help you at this moment because of your sins, and therefore you're not going to merit God's protection. But if you're a completely righteous person, then you'll merit God's protection. Or you could read it in a much more realistic way, which is as I just formulated it. Once you've got some kind of failing, some kind of sin, some kind of mistake that you made, it will come back in spades and be used against you by people who will delight in taking you down. And of course, the irony is that overall, on the righteousness scale, you're 90% righteous, you're 80% righteous. The wicked is 5% righteous and 95% not righteous. But that wicked person will use that 5%, that 10% of non-righteousness of yours to take you down. So be careful. Don't expose yourself to that because, and this is part of what we haven't said yet, totally explicitly, you'll bring tragedy. You'll bring a tragedy upon yourself because you're a good person. You're a good person and you will be defeated. The good that you have done will be defeated. Don't let that happen, right? Because they will use whatever it is that they can. They'll dig up the dirt and they'll use it against you. And this is very, this is very contemporary. This is very contemporary kind of stuff. Okay.
I'm just thinking that the political campaign should be studying this.
Yeah. I think that the relevance here is pretty direct. But the political campaign is, in terms of the distinctions that the Gemara is making, the political campaign is a fight not about personal, despite the fact that the president thinks it's all personal. It's not about personal wrong. It's about matters of heaven. It's about matters of principle. It's about things that affect a lot of people, that affect all of society. In that case, you have no permission to refrain, right? You have then the fighting needs to be done by somebody. Somebody has to put themselves up as a candidate to fight.
Which is also partially a response to Stuart's TikTok comment.
That, yeah, look, the TikTok question or whatever, the business with the sports arena, with the demonstration and so on, the moral question there pales, in my opinion, before the questions that we have in some really, really tough situations. Torture. Is torture ever allowed? Is there ever a time when we can say that, what, if I don't torture this person, in order to, the ticking bomb situation? So is the only argument against it that it doesn't work? Or is there a moral argument? What if it does work? What if in a particular situation, you would save countless lives by doing something that violates the rules?
The old Holocaust question.
So that's where the question of the morality of fighting evil, gets very, very painful. When you just bought a couple of tickets to make sure that the other people aren't able to show up, that's yes, there's a question there, but it's you paid for the ticket, didn't you?
It was free.
So, and guess what? You saved maybe a couple of people from getting sick. So that's nice too. All right. Now we're going to stop here. We're going to hopefully finish the rest of this Gemara next Mishnah next time. Okay. So everyone be well. Have a good week. Sei gesund.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Beryl.
So on.
Goodbye. Thank you.